Last week I talked about serendipitously stumbling upon a pro Go game that I was able to sit through from beginning to end. And this week I have another serendipitous discovery to share with y'all. I went to Book Off, mentioned this store a while back in another episode. It's a secondhand Japanese store with lots of books, movies, anime figurines, manga, lots of cool stuff in there. It's always such a fun place to be. But I mentioned it last time because I was able to find a copy of the Hikaru no Go game on Game Boy Advance, and I went back with my fiance. We were wandering around, and I was doing the rounds, and I thought, you know what? Maybe I'll find Hikaru no Go 2 on Game Boy Advance this time. And I looked at the little cartridges hanging on the wall, and I saw Hikaru no Go 1 again. It was restocked. And I kept looking, and I had the Google Images brought up on my phone showing what the cartridge looks like for Hikaru no Go 2. And boom, there it was on the wall. Picked it up for $3. It was great. I purely for just like a collector's item right now, but I definitely will get to play to it. I think I'm gonna try to get back into playing the first one that I got. I think I was being too thorough with the game with the Google Lens. I was trying to translate basically every single piece of dialogue, and thinking about doing that with my phone while playing on the Nintendo DS kind of was like a stumbling block for me. So maybe I'll go back into it, not taking it so intensely, and just kind of play through the Go bits. But then once I finish with that, I'll get to number 2. The other thing that I found over there, what I always do when I go to Book Off is I go to the manga section to see if they have any volumes of Hikaru no Go. So far, I have volumes 1 through 4, so what I would be looking for is volume number 5, and if I found it, I would grab it. But for some reason that day, I saw only volume number 18. Just a random volume, and I looked at it and I was like, okay, I'm probably not going to pick this up because I probably don't want to have like random volumes. Like, I don't want to really have gaps in my collection. I just want to go in order. But when I looked at the volume and I flipped through it, I realized it was a filler volume. It had 6 separate stories from Hikaru no Go that it's kind of like an anthology episode of Hikaru no Go. So I thought, you know what, that's a standalone product. I'm gonna grab it, and it was like $6.99 or something like that. And so I grabbed it, and I walked off with Hikaru no Go splurge here from Book Off. So if you guys have Book Offs around you, it's a great place to go to look for Hikaru no Go manga. You don't really see them in like Barnes and Noble, for example. I sure haven't. There's so many great mangas and books out there. It's just so hard to keep every single one stocked. Hikaru no Go, yeah, not really the dominant force nowadays, but at Book Off sometimes you can see that series. You're listening to Starpoint, the show about Go for Go fans away from the board. And a couple episodes back, you may recall Sean and Tin coming on the show to play some Blind Go, which is a Go variant, and I decided that that's what we're going to talk about today, starting with maybe Blind Go. Blind Go, if you listen to that episode, I think is quite challenging, and if you were able to follow along with Sean and Tin, good job. I don't think it was an easy task to play through as much as they did. You can see that they're Go players by the fact that they were able to get that far in Blind Go. And I'm wondering, so I mean, if you're not looking at a physical board and you're naming coordinates, how far can you actually go in that game? Because the thing is with me, with Sean and Tin, what we did was we used Go language to specify our moves. We said, oh, I kick, and then I'll stand, and then I'll back off, and I'll do a knight's move approach. But that can only get you so far, because for the opening, that's very good, because you can kind of understand what the joseki are and everything. And you can do things based off of reference points like the star points, but once you start getting into the middle game, you really need to be very specific, and I imagine it's near impossible. I'm wondering, like, do you guys know if pros can even do this from start to finish to the end of the game? I almost have trouble believing that they could. Like, I know that for chess, it's a thing, but the thing is with chess, it actually gets simpler as time goes on. There's all the pieces on the board and things come off the board. There's less pieces to keep track of. But with Go, it just gets more and more complicated as you play. So I'm wondering, has anybody witnessed a honest to goodness beginning to end game of blind Go? I'd love to know. A variation of this variation of Go is called Shadow Go. Now, I haven't played many of the variations that we're going to talk about today. I have played some of them. Shadow Go being one of the ones that I have not played. But basically the way it goes is it's like half blind Go. So you get to see your own moves, but not your opponent's moves. So in a practical setting, when you want to play with a physical board, you need 2 Go boards, one for each player, and then one for the moderator or referee. So the way it works is you play a move, and then the referee plays that move onto their board. And then I believe the other player is told what move was played, or I don't know if they're pointed at. But then that other player makes a move, and then the moderator plays that move on their board. But each player does not play their opponent's moves on their own boards. So it's like it's not exactly Fog of War, but it's kind of like you're playing against a shadow. I guess that's why it's called Shadow Go. I think it's a very interesting way to play Go. For this blind Go variation and the Shadow Go variation, I think they're fun exercises, but I don't know if they're necessarily great Go variants. I don't know if they really bring the flavor of Go out of the game. So I'm going to give these variants, both of them, I'll give like a C tier, because yes, it's a fun thing to try, but I don't know if it has the most value among the variants. The next variant I'm going to talk about is a very basic, boring one called Capture Go. Now, you all know what Capture Go is. Capture Go is just you play until someone captures a stone. It's like Go cut short. It's like Go without the climax. It's Go just the beginning. And it's a great tool for teaching beginners because you can avoid so much of the complications that come up in a full 19x19 game. Another way to make Capture Go more fun, though, is to keep going and say whoever captures 2 stones wins, or whoever captures 5 stones or 10 stones. And you keep doing that, and eventually you get to the game of Go. That's actually what happened with my fiance and I when I was teaching her how to play Go. She just kind of wanted to keep going after Capture Go, and then she was like, is this Go? And I was like, you know what? Yeah, at this point it is. It's Go. So it's a fun introduction to Go, but I don't know. I guess like for its essential quality as a Go variant in terms of being so key to introducing so many to the game, I'll give it some love with a B tier, but overall, I don't know if it's the most fun. The next one is probably my personal favorite, Zen Go. Now, if you don't know what Zen Go is, you need 3 people to play this. And the way it works is, well, you know how Go has 2 colors? Well, in Zen Go, you managed to play the game with 3 people and only 2 colors. How, you might ask? Well, by not having winners and losers and sides. You basically just play a move as black, and then the next player plays the move as white, and then the next player plays the move as black, and then it's your turn again, and guess what? Now you're white. So every turn that you play, you're going to be switching sides. So you really have no dog in this race. So you just get to play Go just for the purpose of trying to play beautiful moves and play Go-like moves. It's such an interesting experience. If you've never experienced Zen Go, I highly recommend you grab 2 buddies and try it out. It's so strange because Go is a competitive game with a winner and a loser. But as soon as you start playing Zen Go, it goes from a game to just an activity and a thought process. And it's just a fascinating experience. And you can talk freely about what you're doing as you play because nobody has an identity in Zen Go. It's like we're all sharing each other's bodies. It's a very interesting experience, and I highly recommend trying Zen Go if you haven't. And I think when you play it, you understand why it's called Zen Go, because you feel zen. Like there's no stress. Like with Go, a lot of times I feel like we can be a little stressed about what's going on and whether we're playing our best. But with Zen Go, you're so detached. You're almost like it's almost like you're watching a game where you feel not attached to the outcome, and yet you are playing the game. So it's such an interesting experience, and it's something that I feel like is unique. So I'm going to give this one an A tier, even though it's my personal favorite. I'm not going to use my bias to pump this rating up to the S tier. But Zen Go, I highly recommend trying it out. The next variation I have here is Ren Go or Pair Go. Now, if you don't know the difference between Ren Go and Pair Go, it's really not any different other than the fact that Pair Go is specifically gendered. So male-female version of Go. Ren Go is just 2 people playing on a team. Okay, so if you don't know what either of those things are or were, it's just 2v2 Go with 1 board. So what happens is each team of 2 takes a color to play, and they're not allowed to communicate with each other about the moves that they're going to play. Otherwise, what happens? If you're allowed to talk to your teammate about the moves that you're going to play, you're just inevitably going to just become the stronger player of the 2, dictating all of the moves, right? So that doesn't make it interesting at all. Basically, two players don't get to play. But if you don't communicate with each other, now it gets interesting. So I have played this game 2v2 and 2v1. So in the 2v2 situation, you got to have 4 Go playing people in the same room, which can be tough for some of us. But we managed to find some people willing to play, and it was a very quiet experience. Not much talking, so it's not like the most social thing. Maybe it was just the group, maybe it was just the mood that time, but it was very interesting because anyone who's played this knows what happens with like a real weak and strong player dynamic. Because obviously you don't want to pair the strong people together and then the weak people together. So you're going to try to balance it out. So each team is going to end up having a strong player and a weak player. And what happens usually is during this game, you see that the strong players are having a conversation in one part of the board, while the weaker players are having a separate conversation on the other part of the board, because the weaker players don't know what the strong players are talking about. And so they just go about and do their own thing that they actually understand or think they know that they understand with each other. And so it's such a revealing thing where if you put these players together playing the same game, they somehow manage to pair off and talk to each other. It's almost like you're at a party and you just kind of go into these separate corners of the room to talk to each other, even though you're in the same team and you're playing against the other team. It's an interesting experience, like Zen Go too. The other experience I had, I don't know if there's a name for this, but it's 2v1. But the closest variant that I could find for this type of Go would be Ren Go. But basically, there was only 3 of us, and we weren't going to play Zen Go, and we wanted to play a game all together. So what happened was, I had a friend who was stronger than me, and I had a friend who was weaker than me. So I put them together as a single team, and then I was on my own team. So you would think, if I was like, 8Q or something at the time, and my friend was like a Don level player, and my other friend was like a double-digit Q, like maybe 18Q or something like that. What would you think would happen in that game of Go? If the 18Q plays with the Don player on the same team, taking turns, not talking to each other about what moves they're going to play, against like an 8Q player. I mean, I'm trying to go off memory on like what the ranks were, but roughly I think that's kind of what the spread was. Surprisingly, what happened was that I lost. I thought that the weaker player would make enough moves that were bad moves that I could take advantage of them. But the opposite happened, where the stronger player was able to cover up enough of the mistakes of the weaker player. It was so surprising to me when I experienced that, because I realized that having a strong player on your team is kind of like having a good insurance on your team that will just take care of everything when they can. And even though the weak player may not make the best moves, the most efficient moves, having a strong enough player on the team will just kind of make it work and not leave these crucial things hanging for the other player to mess up for them. So I thought that was a very interesting and surprising outcome for the 2v1 Go. Let me know if anybody's played 2v1 Go. It's an interesting one as well. Okay, another variant that I want to talk about is one that was featured heavily on Nick Sabicki's channel whenever Andrew Jackson was visiting Nick Sabicki's class. So this was back when he was doing the live class videos at the Seattle Go Club. And then Andrew Jackson would come on and they would play a show match of what was called Hidden Move Go. Though I think maybe a more appropriate name for this might be like Minesweeper Go or Minesweeper Go, because it's really kind of like you're planting mines on the field before you play the game. So how it works is each of them would secretly play 3 stones of their own color on the board that the other player wouldn't know about. So they would mark it somehow, allowing other people to see, but the other player wouldn't know about it. So you start the game basically with stones on the board already. So when you start playing a little weird because you know some things that the opponent doesn't know, and the opponent knows some things that you don't know. And so when you start playing weird, and you're trying to read each other, and you're trying to suss each other out and figure out where they put their stones. You're trying to bluff a little bit, like, okay, I'm going to act like I have a stone on the 4-4 here and not play in that corner, and then my opponent will think that I have a 4-4 there, and then I'll use that to my advantage. There are a lot of mind games that happen. It's a very interesting thing, and what happens when you try to play a move on that spot where you've hidden one of your moves, that stone is revealed and you can't play there. So I've never had the chance to play this, but it looks really fun, and it certainly is entertaining to watch. So if you haven't seen those, go to Nick Sabicki's channel and look for Hidden Move Go. I think the videos are titled like Andrew Jackson Hides at Go. He does this running gag where he does Andrew Jackson does this and that does that and stuff like that. But yeah, really fun to watch. I'd love to play it one day. I'd love to hear about if any of you have played it as well. Okay, and then the next variant of Go that I have played, maybe my second favorite, or not my second favorite, but like my second favorite variation of Go. It is one that was featured in Hikaru no Go, and it is called One Color Go. Now this I played with a strong friend of mine, with my other friend recording the game. So how this works is you just take one set of stones. In this case, we took the white stones, and both players use the same color stones. Not that you're actually playing the same colored stones, but that's all you can see. So you can see the positions of the stones that you play, but you don't remember which stone was black and which stone was white. So both of you are grabbing from the same bowl, and so you have to remember. It's almost like a blind Go, but more reasonable. And if you've seen Hikaru no Go, eventually Hikaru plays this One Color Go variant at some point. It's a pretty fun episode. And then they do this top-down shot of the game, and it's just all white stones, or I forget if they use blacks. I think they use white stones, and it's just like mind-boggling. How can you ever play like that? And you kind of need somebody on the side to record the game because you're going to lose track, right? So, my friend, she had a XGF editor open, tracking what was going on. And, it sounds like a very challenging thing to do, and it is. But it really revealed in me what I understood about Go. As I was playing One Color Go, I was able to keep track of what was going on and understand what my brain is actually storing is not just looking at colors on the board, but actual relationships between two opposing forces. And just feeling that and understanding that you have that knowledge without the need for the cue of the colors actually appearing on the board is an interesting experience as well. I think a lot of these variants that I'm talking about, they reveal something about the main game, the 19x19 classic game of Go, and how your brain understands it, because by shifting it and kind of turning it on its head, you can kind of see all these different ways that your brain perceives the game. And One Color Go is such an interesting experience. If you have some experience playing Go and you got some Joseki under your belt, you kind of know how things are supposed to move, you're comfortable with the game, maybe you're not the best player, but you understand how stones generally flow, give it a shot. It's really, you may be surprised at how well you hang on in One Color Go, and it's such a fun thing to just have the same color of stones on, because it's like any passing Go player will look at it and go, oh my goodness, I can't believe you guys are doing that. And it's such a visually striking thing too. I'm going to give One Color Go S tier. I forgot about ranking stuff. Ranking, I'm going to rank Rengo and Parago. I'm going to rank that A tier. I think that's a good one. Hidden Move Go, I'm going to also rank A tier, even though I've never played it. And then again, One Color Go, I think may end up being my only S tier rank. The next one, I also haven't played this one, but I would love to play it. 3 Color Go. So it's just Go for 3 players, like a free-for-all. I mean, what else could you ask for, right? But the thing is, you need 3 colored stones. You can't play with a regular set, so you're going to need a stand-in, whether you use M&Ms or Mentos or pennies or dimes or whatever. You're going to need a 3rd color or a 3-color Go set if you have one of those. I've never played it. Honestly, I can't imagine it working out too well here for 3-color Go. If anybody's had a great experience with 3-color Go, let me know, but I just don't see it really working that well. I don't know if the game would, it just seems crowded, and I just feel like strategies would feel very slow and muddied up by everything, and I don't know. It's just not really selling me. I might be wrong, but I'm going to give this one a C tier. And the next one is a kind of Go that was played as the main form of Go in Korea for a long time, called Sunjang Baduk. Many of you may have heard of this in, what's it called? There's that Korean drama, Captivating the King, I believe. That one is set in a period of time when they're playing Sunjang Baduk. So what Sunjang Baduk is basically there are bases taken all around the board already. So stones, black and white stones, are lined up around I believe it's the 4th line, and they're basically all the bases are taken, and you start the game like that. And what that does is it creates a very aggressive game where everybody's attacking and fighting each other already. It's kind of like you don't have the option for peace. They set you up to just have at each other. And I've always wanted to try this game of Go, but I never got around to it. I think it'll be fun. I think I like the idea of fighting, but it also does make me anxious to think about having all of that cramped space, filled up. from the beginning of the game, because I do like the blank slate opening, and I'm glad that that's the popular version of Go, but I would love to try Sunjang Baduk one day. I'm going to give that I'll give it a B tier. And then another Korean form of Go, although I don't think it's really a strictly Korean form of Go, but the Korean name for it is 박내기. And this is basically gambling Go. And the way you gamble in this form of Go is by territory points. And each point of territory is worth a certain amount of money. So you're not only trying to win in this version of Go, you're trying to win as big as possible. It's then a different game, because you know that when we win by half a point in Go, we win just as much as we win by 30 points. It's a win in Go. But in this form of gambling Go, 박내기, a win can be bigger or smaller depending on how you play. So it definitely changes how you play. Although I've never tried it. I don't know if I'll ever try it, because I'm not huge on gambling. Maybe if I put in like a cent per point, I would play like this. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't think there's enough people who play Go that I run into that I would be like, hey, let's play like a quick game of like gambling Go. But I think it's an interesting concept. And again, I think this, kind of gambling exists in the main kingdoms of Go, and I think a lot of people have lost a lot of money this way, playing this kind of Go. So I'm not gonna say that I condone that kind of Go, but I think it's an interesting thing to think about. And maybe there's a way to take the gambling out of the game, where you have this like accumulative point system where you play more games and then you try to add up to the points and you try to reach a certain amount of points to win. I don't know. I think that would be an interesting thought. But I'm gonna give this one a B tier as well. And then another form of Go I've never played, Choice Go. So this variation of Go is when you have a stronger player that you want them to take a certain kind of handicap, but not like the regular handicap, because we're trying to be interesting. And so what you do is every move, instead of them just taking a move, they give you the option of two moves that they want to take. They say, oh, I'm going to either play this Knight's Approach here, or I'm going to play this 3/3 invasion. And then the weaker player gets to choose which one they want to take. So the stronger player has to think of two good moves every turn, and this, you can see how it could get a little bit tricky when there are very vital moves and you really need to play this one very urgent move, but now you've given the other player the option to choose one or the other move. So you have to find a move that is just as good as the other move that you're considering, and that may not be possible all the time. It kind of reminds me of this kind of parable about farmers trying to divvy up cows for each other, and the farmers decide the best way to do it is for one farmer to divvy up the cows, and then the other farmer to choose which lot to take. That's kind of what it reminded me of. But Choice Go, it sounds like a fun thing to do, but at the same time, it sounds super tedious. I can't see myself playing very far with this one. I'm going to give this a C tier as well. And then the next one I have here is Toroidal Go, which is like Infinity Go. Has anyone played Star Fox? Specifically Star Fox 64, because I don't know exactly how all the other Star Foxes worked. But in Star Fox 64, whenever you're playing versus mode, or I don't know if it's any versus mode, but I think just maybe Sector Z. It's been a while. But it's like you're dogfighting. Star Fox, you're in a plane, jet, whatever, and you're fighting, and the thing is that when you go to one side of the map and you just keep going, you come out the other side of the map and you're in this infinite space that loops around. Other games like this are maybe like Pac-Man, I guess, except you have walls blocking your way. But I'm sure there's plenty of games like this where you go in one side and you come out the other. This is what Toroidal Go is like, where you have stones kind of just with lines going in one direction and then it comes out the other direction. And it's basically an infinite but not infinite board. Like, you know what I mean? I've never played it. It looks very confusing. It looks... I don't know how it works out, but it's a trippy game. I'll give it a B tier because it's interesting. Another one along that vein is 3-dimensional Go, which is kind of like 3-dimensional chess, but with Go. And I think I've seen somebody create a physical version of this where they hang little things on points in a 3D grid. And this is just kind of like it's gonna just make your brain hurt to play this kind of Go, because Go already makes your brain hurt, and to add another dimension to this and figure out how capture rules work with 3 dimensions, because it's like one stone in 3-dimensional Go has 6 liberties, right? It's like in regular 2-dimensional Go, it has 4 liberties. So in 3-dimensional Go, one stone has 6 liberties. So then when you add a stone to that group and you attach it and you extend it, then it has 4, 6, 8, 10 liberties, I think, if I'm counting this right. It's very difficult, even just to think about. But it's interesting. It is very interesting. So I would be down to play it if somebody had a 3D Go set lying around, or if somebody programmed a 3D Go, program. Would you play on a 19 by 19? Is that how 3D Go would work? That would be very interesting. It's fun to think about for sure, but for playing purposes, I don't know. I'm going to call it a B tier just because it's so fun to think about. And then my final one I have is the one that I learned at the Mission Viejo Go Club. I don't know if it has a name, or if I might have forgotten the name of it, but I'm going to call it Reverse Pro Go, where you take a pro game and you take turns removing stones until somebody says, I can win in this position, and then you play from there. And I noticed while watching the Mission Viejo Go Club players play this, that this is very good endgame practice. I never thought that this form of Go would be the way to play or practice endgame, but it's actually, I saw them play it and I was like, wow, this is like a really good way to think about endgame, because you have this very even professional game that went all the way to the end, but you're taking away the end game and you're trying to figure it out yourselves. And I thought that was a very fun exercise. Though I don't know if it's something that I would pull out super often. Let's give it a B tier. Okay. The rankings were kind of gratuitous and pointless, but just wanted to add a little pop to the list of Go variants. There's so many Go variants out there. There's so many more that I haven't listed, but those are some of the main ones that I wanted to talk about, so I hope you enjoyed. As I said, there are so many Go variants to talk about. If you go on Sensei's library, the list goes on and on and on and on. And the thing is, I think there are more variations to come. Sometimes I think about Scrabble and how the squares in Scrabble have double, triple bonuses and things like that. And I wonder if there's a way to incorporate that into Go. I think that would be cool too. Or maybe even just like a video game version of Go with like all these items and things like that and power moves that you can do. Obviously, nothing's going to beat the regular classic 19 by 19 form of Go, but it's always fun to take a little break and do something a little different once in a while. And that's another reason to love Go. But it's time for the DDK Advice Corner, and the tip of the day is zoom out and evaluate. So I was looking at a game, and I think this player didn't really zoom out and evaluate the board to see where all the lines were being drawn. So I want you to try to make a habit of zooming out on the board and looking at all the different areas of territory and see how your groups are doing, see where things are being settled and what looks like black's territory, what looks like white's territory. Stop focusing too much on the local and focusing too much on what your opponent is doing. Look at the lines that are being drawn and find out if you're comfortable with those lines. And if you're not, then do something about it before it's too late. So zoom out and evaluate and do something about the reality that is forming before you have no control over the reality that is forming, and it's already formed and it's crystallized and you have nothing else to do about it. So before you do that, you got to zoom out and evaluate. And now it's time for listener mail. Tristan Who says, thanks for the episode. I think you did an excellent job summarizing the story and adding some nuances I had missed before. Well, thank you very much, Tristan. And he's referring to the Lidgate episode, which more people have things to say about. So thanks for writing in. Banana Quark 1164 says, we all love the sounds of Go. I sometimes even put some video of a game on in the background to hear the clickety clack. Have you ever considered producing an episode with the sounds of a game in the background? Maybe it's horrible audio, but I think I would love it, smiley face. Well, thanks for writing in, and thanks for the suggestion. You know what? I actually have. I thought, maybe one thing that I love about Go is hearing the sounds of the stones, and maybe if I'm someone who likes that, maybe other listeners would like that as well. So maybe I'll think about somehow incorporating it again. Oh, hey, hello. Last episode, my Go equipment actually has a bunch of Go sounds in it because I was showing off all my Go equipment and I was touching all the stones and making all the clickety-clack sounds. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for writing in, Banana Quark. My boy writes, saw the Reddit all abuzz talking about this, but didn't look too much into it. Looking forward to getting a cohesive breakdown of what happened. Well, thanks for listening, my boy. DJ74033 writes, I like your thought on not having the points being taken away from the game, as I think it would change how SGF/game would play out. Thinking historically, I wouldn't like to review older games where a random -2 points just show up. So keeping penalties off the board is my preferred. I wonder if against the time that could change the gameplay. You know, I didn't even think about that. I didn't even think about how the SGFs look kind of messed up because of that. And yeah, that's another reason why it would not be great to have points as rules for punishment as part of the game. It's just, you want a clean SGF that just makes sense. I mean, it's already bad enough to just say, like, you have to say, like, oh, this is Japanese rules, this is Korean rules, this is Chinese rules. To have an additional, like, 2-point penalty stuff, like, come up, it's messy. I don't like it. Continuing, this whole thought made me think about how MLB messed up baseball in overtime by putting a random person on second. Makes no sense to have someone magically show up. I don't know much about baseball, so I don't know what that is. What happens? Like, what happens? I'm curious now. Like, what a random person is put on second, like an extra person. In hockey, it's a very normal thing where you take people off the ice and it's just like a 5-on-4. And I think, you know, that's a difference with hockey and Go. I love, like, the whole power play mechanic, and it changes the game. It alters the game, and it's a way of punishing the players for doing penalties. But in Go, I don't want them to touch the game. I don't want that to be part of the game. I want the game to be the game and then put the penalties outside of the game. Thanks for writing in, DJ. And then Bruce Young says, Go game is a gentleman game. It is between two gentlemen. Placing stone in a lid is a tradition for Japan/Korean players, but not for Chinese players. The impact of placing the stone on the table instead of the lid is nothing to the top level player in all nations. The top player, as a gentleman, would never agree to a win on a game on misplacing stone on table. Using such a rule in a Go game is a shame. This rule is the only way for humans to beat AI. The rule is also open more cheating in Go games, such as giving more dead stones to the opponent so that the lid cannot hold it. Okay. Thanks for writing in, Bruce. I understand you're probably upset about the outcome of the LG Cup thing, but I also don't want to say that, you know, obviously nobody wants the game to be decided on something like this. But we can't understate the importance of these rules that are in place, and we have to respect the rules, and they have to be enforced, right? We need to keep order in a tournament setting. Have you guys been to Costco? Or when you go out of Costco after you've brought in your haul of wholesale goods, at the very end, when you're pushing your cart and you're just about to make it out the door, there's somebody there and they tell you that you need to give them your receipt so they can mark it with a highlighter. Now, I mean, look, we all know why they're doing that, because they don't want people walking out of the store with a whole bunch of stuff, like hundreds of dollars worth of groceries, without paying for it. So they want to keep track of the receipts. But, what if I was trying to walk out of Costco and, I never steal anything from Costco, and you're asking me to show my receipt to you because you want to check my cart? You think I'm a thief? And then I start making a big deal about it, and then I make it go all crazy and out of hand, and I start complaining. I'm going to face some consequences for that, right? It's not about accusing everybody and thinking that everybody's a cheater, but we need to keep a controlled environment because there are cheaters, because those things happen. They can happen. And so it's important to respect the rules. It's important to respect rules that we all agree on. I understand that it's not an ideal situation. And yes, I also agree that the punishment of actually ruling the game as a forfeit was way too much. But let's see both sides of the equation, I think. Thanks for writing in. Thanks for your thoughts, Bruce. And then Sadaharu writes, I was thinking about when you would talk about this, LOL. The judge took long to intervene because he was consulting with the Chinese coach Yu Bin, who then decided to appeal and make the process even longer. If the judge just decided to give the penalty immediately without any consultation, or if the Chinese side didn't appeal at all, the pause could have just been 10 seconds. All these talks about sealing a move would not be needed if a pause is a mere 10 seconds. Besides, it's also very difficult to implement a sealed move fairly and securely unless you are well prepared, like the 2-day games in Japan. I didn't know about this. The thing is, during this game, a lot of the stuff is behind the scenes. You kind of hear voices off camera, so I didn't know about this consultation with the Chinese coach. So if that's the case, then I don't know. I guess there's more people to blame here than I thought. The other point about the sealed move is, I think I mentioned this during that episode, but basically, you know, when you have to intervene, when the referee has to intervene, they have to intervene on someone's time. It's gonna be unfair. But unfortunately, we have to do that. And even with the sealed moves, I told you guys in my book, the one that I always tell you that I like, The Master of Go, there's a moment in the book, small spoiler, where the player does a sealed move. So they do a sealed move, and then their sealed move is a co-threat, therefore nullifying the sealed move's purpose. I mean, they lose a co-threat, I guess. That's one thing they do lose, but I mean, it's not anything compared to all the thinking time they had overnight to think about what, you know, if there was a critical part of the board that was not the co-threat. I mean, you can always take advantage. Like, the thing is, at the end of the day, like Bruce said, it's a gentleman's game. The game so much depends on the honor of the players, and like, as much as we can do like refereeing and things like that, we just have to be diplomatic as players. And unfortunately, this whole fiasco was a failing on many people's parts. So, I mean, I don't know who is to blame, but it's just an unfortunate thing that happened, and you know, I think everyone involved could have done better. Continuing, there are cultural factors at play too. Korea treats Go like sports, whereas in China and Japan, Go is still very much a cultural activity. Judges in Korea are full-time judges who are not allowed to compete in tournaments. Just like sports, their role is to step in when the rules are violated and implement the penalty, according to the rules. In China and Japan, the judges will only step in when there are conflicts between the players and will rarely intervene on their own accord. They are more like overseers rather than judges. Of course, the rule itself needs improvement, and it definitely is a bad idea to change the rules in the middle of a tournament, but like you said, once the rules are fixed, they need to be followed during the game. Any discussion on the rules should happen before or after the game. Thanks for writing in, Sadaharu. Thanks for your thoughts. Yeah, that's a very interesting thing. I knew that Korea treats Go like sports, and Japan is a very traditional cultural kind of culture for Go. I didn't know China was also kind of like that, and that does make sense. Like if you have this kind of cultural, traditional, keeping in tradition kind of attitude about Go, and then you go to this country that treats it like a hardcore sport where they just referee and blow whistles and stuff like that, and then they start blowing whistles at you when you're just trying to play a traditional game of Go, then you might feel a little bit, on the getting the short side of the stick. So yeah, it's an interesting and complex issue here. A lot of things at play. Thanks for writing in. Your thoughts are very interesting. Semi590 writes, in the Koja versus Park game, this is the one I was talking about where Koja throws the stones. Not only did Ke slap his face and threw stones, which sort of bumped into Park, he also cursed both Chinese and Korean. I'm like tempted to say the curse words that they spelled out here, because when I speak English, I'm an English speaker, and so other languages' curse words don't sound like curse words to me, so I just like say them loosely. My fiance gets mad at me when I curse in Spanish because it's unbecoming of me, but it just doesn't feel like a swear word to me because I didn't grow up not being allowed to say it, so it's very different. But anyway, I'm not going to say them. They're basically, according to Koja said curse words in both Chinese and Korean. He does not speak Korean, but he does intentionally curse with languages his opponents understand. I really hate his manners as a Chinese player. Of course, I hate the LG mess even further, but most people know that already. Oh my goodness, I didn't know that. I didn't hear him say... I can watch the video again to see if he swears in Korean. But yeah, I mean, like I said, look, Koja is a controversial figure too, so there's just so many things going on. And it was just like the perfect storm. Continuing, regarding the unified rule, that would be great, but I don't think it is easy to achieve from the perspective of culture and history. China needs to maintain the tradition and sees no reason to deviate from the existing rule, while Korea and Japan don't want to be mandated by the quote-unquote celestial empire again. This also applies to the root cause of hate to Korean by Chinese, and namely hate to Chinese by Korean, where I think most people who cursed and personally attacked don't even play or care about Go itself. Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of people getting involved that aren't really Go players. I feel like, just my gut feeling, they just kind of go in, they like spaz out on the keyboard, and they don't really care about the game. I see a lot of that. I think maybe we can just try to ignore it as much as possible and move on. Continuing, why is there a complaint when a referee directs its decision? That is indeed not the ideal scenario, but I think I read about the KBA rule of settling any dispute at the time of it instead of afterwards, which is the same logic when you settle the dispute of your bill at the counter in a supermarket instead of 2 days later. And I don't think there is any successful case of appeal anyways. For the reason of Koja reacting so much in Game 3, you must understand that he is in a foreign country, and after Game 2, he had little trust on the fairness of the referee or the entire KBA, I suppose. The time where the referee intervened seems to him more like a hint than a time extension to Byun. So to him, and to a lot of people, there is no possibility of a fair and smooth continuation of G3, thus the protest. And I think language barrier plays a role here too. If the referee talked to Byun in English, maybe Ke could feel differently. I think these are some good points. I'm not sure I agreed about the grocery store thing because, I think that's a different thing, because there's no written rule when you enter a grocery store, if you have a dispute, you must dispute the rule at blah blah blah. It's not like that. It's just you just got to argue with the manager and say, hey, I didn't want to buy this, or I don't know what kind of dispute you would have. But a Go tournament has very specific rules laid out that you all agree to when you enter the tournament and decide to play. That's why I think it's a little bit of a different situation. At the same time, I do empathize with Koja a little bit. And yeah, I understand being in a foreign country, being on the kind of receiving end of these punishments by this other country, it can be frustrating, it can be emotional, and you may not have it in you to wait until after the tournament to discuss the rule in a simple manner, and I might not be someone who's that patient. But then again, as a professional Go player, not just a professional Go player, one of the top professional Go players in the world, I think that is a standard to be held to. I think that if you're going to be the top player in the world, if you're going to be one of the top players in the world, you need to have that kind of etiquette to be able to say, hey, look, I'm going to be mature here, and I'm going to talk and realize that there are many countries' politics and organizations' politics and other players that are affected by my behavior, and I'm going to try to behave in a most civil manner that kind of smooths things along for everybody. And so I don't think Koji acted in the best interest of the game. I don't think the KBA acted in the best interest of the game. I don't think the Chinese Weiqi Association is acting for the best interest of the game either. All I'm saying is everyone can improve here. Thanks for writing in. Thanks for your thoughts, Semi. And then Bill Etley writes, after listening to your podcast, along with Simple Baduk's take on it, I can say there does not need to be one governing body of Go, Weiqi, Paduk, much like FIDE is for chess. And as far as Chinese players and scoring versus Korean or Japanese players and scoring wouldn't be a high-level professional, such as Kaje, practicing putting stones in his lid as part of training for the tournament. I'm not sure if I read that wrong or if it was written a little weird. I'm just a DDK from America, so if that's not part of the training at high levels, then I apologize for my ignorance. Okay, I see what you're trying to say here. Yeah, that's the other point for me is like, look, I understand. It's not like they added this rule at the last minute, like, whoa, you, like, for 30 years, you guys say, no, you don't have to put your stone in the lid, and suddenly you want that to happen? Yeah, I get it. You haven't been doing that. You haven't been training your muscle memory, but this isn't something that has just been recently requested. This has been requested time and time again, and, it's just recently been enforced. So I don't know how hard it is to put your stones in the lid. I agree with you here. But I'm just a SDK from America. So if I'm ignorant, then that's on me as well. Thanks for writing in. Thanks for your thoughts. Thanks for all your thoughts on this very complicated, complex subject. The question of the week is, did I miss a Go variant that you like? What's your favorite Go variant? I'd love to know. So if you want to share your thoughts on this question, or if you have a Go story that you want to share, or have a question of your own that you want to ask me, you can comment on YouTube or the Reddit post for this episode, or you can email me directly at starpointpaduk@gmail.com. That's starpointbaduk@gmail.com. If you're a YouTube listener, I would greatly appreciate a like and or subscribe. And if you're a podcast listener, reviews and ratings also help. A very, very special thank you to James B. and Tristan for supporting Starpoint. And if you want to support the show in any capacity, you can go to ko-fi.com/starpointpaduk. That's ko.fi. Or you can go to store.starpointpaduk.com to get some Starpoint Paduk merch. All right, what do we got? What do we got in terms of humor today? Okay, I got one here. What do you call a joke that's in Gote? Thanks for listening. Keep playing Go.